Hashtag the wedding invitation. A story of revenge and redemption. My ex-husband invited me to his wedding with a much younger woman, just to humiliate and mock me. But when he saw who I arrived with, his jaw dropped. Lucy, a successful mystery novelist at 45, found a peculiar contrast between the tranquility of her book-filled study and the turbulence that stirred within her when she held the wedding invitation in her hands. The envelope, elegant and firm, seemed out of place among the routine bills and advertisements of Daily Mail. Upon opening it, golden letters on ivory paper announced the upcoming marriage of her ex-husband, Edward, to Victoria, a woman notably younger than him. "This can't be real," Lucy whispered, the crisp paper trembling between her fingers. That same afternoon, her friend Marina arrived unexpectedly. Seeing the somber expression on Lucy's face, she immediately knew something was wrong. "What's happening, Lucy?" Marina asked, leaving her coat on the back of a chair. Lucy handed her the invitation without saying a word. Marina read in silence, her dark eyes narrowing slightly as she finished. "You're going." The concern in her voice was evident. "I'm considering it. It's obvious this is a game for him, a way to show me he's moved on, perhaps even to humiliate me." Lucy's voice cracked, revealing a mixture of anger and pain. Marina approached and took Lucy's hands in hers, offering silent support before speaking. "Lucy, you're not the same woman he left behind. You've grown, you've healed. Going to this wedding could be a way to show him he no longer has power over you." Marina's words ignited a spark of determination in Lucy's eyes. It was true. She was no longer a leaf carried by the wind of circumstances, but a woman who had learned to navigate storms with grace. "You're right. I'll go, but on my terms. I'll make this an opportunity to close this chapter of my life once and for all," Lucy affirmed, her decision strengthening with each word. Marina smiled, her confidence in Lucy unwavering. "What if you find someone impressive to accompany you? Someone who would really make Edward regret any intention of mockery." The idea was attractive and vengefully sweet. Lucy pondered for a moment, then nodded with a mischievous smile. "That sounds exactly like what I need. I'll make this wedding unforgettable, not just for Edward, but for me too." With the plan forming in her mind, Lucy felt revitalized. She wouldn't just face the ghosts of her past, she would do so with her head held high, accompanied by someone who would ensure all eyes were on her for the right reasons. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in fiery tones, Lucy sat in front of her computer, her fingers dancing over the keyboard with renewed energy, planning not only her next novel, but also the next decisive confrontation in her personal life. The next morning, Lucy woke with a strange mixture of nerves and determination. Marina's words echoed in her mind. Turn that wedding into her stage, a moment to prove she wasn't the fragile woman Edward had once left behind. While drinking her coffee in the study, a name surfaced in her mind: Alexander Hayes, an actor famous for his attractiveness and enigmatic character. She had met him at a literary event the previous year and remembered his charisma and his ability to read people. It wasn't a conventional idea, but it was what she needed. Alexander wouldn't just attract attention. He would also protect her dignity in a hostile environment. Taking her phone, she searched for his number, which she had saved after that event. She hesitated for a few seconds before dialing. "Alexander, this is Lucy Ortega. I don't know if you remember me," she said with a tone that tried to sound more confident than she felt. "Lucy Ortega, the writer. Of course I remember you. To what do I owe the honor of your call?" he responded with a relaxed and curious voice. Lucy explained her situation, measuring each word to avoid revealing the deep vulnerability that motivated her. When she finished, there was a brief silence on the other end of the line. "I accept," Alexander said with a confidence that disarmed her. "It'll be interesting. And what you're describing sounds like the plot of a novel. I can't resist." Days later, Alexander arrived at Lucy's house to discuss the details. His presence filled the room with an energy that seemed made for spotlights, but at the same time had a warmth that was disarming. Lucy offered him coffee while they went over the plan. "I want this to be flawless. I need Edward to understand that he can no longer hurt me, and I want others to see it too," Lucy said with a frankness that surprised even Alexander. "Trust me, we won't just look like the most elegant couple at that wedding. We'll make him question every decision he's made since he left you," Alexander responded, smiling with a touch of complicity. Lucy couldn't help but laugh at his confidence, a feeling of relief slowly sliding through her veins. "I don't know how to thank you for this." "You'll thank me when you see his face," he responded with a wink. As the preparations advanced, Lucy began receiving unexpected calls and messages. Relatives who had barely maintained contact with her now seemed interested in the details of her attendance. Among them was a call from her sister Claire, whose relationship with Lucy had been tense for years due to a past incident. "Are you really thinking of going to that wedding?" Claire asked bluntly. "Of course. Why wouldn't I?" Lucy responded, maintaining her composure. "Because you know how Edward is. This won't be a reconciliation or a moment of redemption. This will be war disguised as a celebration." Claire's words hung heavy in the air. Lucy knew her sister was right on some level, but she decided not to show herself affected. "I won't let him dictate what I do or how I live my life. This time I'm playing by my rules. Just be careful. Edward isn't just a manipulator. He's a man with secrets. And not all of them are harmless," Claire warned before hanging up abruptly. Claire's warning stayed with Lucy, feeding her doubts but also igniting her curiosity. What could it mean? What secrets was she insinuating? That night she decided to search for information about Edward, something she hadn't done in years. What she found left her unsettled. Records of shady businesses, connections with influential people of questionable reputation. There were photos of Edward with men of shadowy faces, and in meetings where the shadows seemed more important than the names. Lucy shared her findings with Alexander the next day while they finalized the details for their entrance to the wedding. "This isn't just a wedding, Alexander. I think there's something more behind all this. Something I can't understand yet," Lucy confessed with a mixture of fear and determination. "Then we'll find out. Meanwhile, we'll do what we came to do, steal the show and prove that you no longer live in his shadow," Alexander responded with reassuring firmness. As the wedding day approached, tension increased. Lucy felt she wasn't just facing Edward, but also a past full of secrets and betrayals. What should have been a simple act of personal vindication was beginning to look more like a chess game where the pieces weren't completely visible. The wedding day arrived with sunny weather, ironically contrasting with the tension Lucy felt. The dress she chose, a bold and elegant design in emerald tones, not only highlighted her figure but also her confidence. Alexander, in an impeccably cut suit, waited for her by the door of the car they had rented to arrive in style. Upon seeing her, he smiled with genuine admiration. "You're going to leave more than one person speechless," he said, offering her his arm. "I hope so. Although there's something more I need to discover today," Lucy responded, letting glimpse the mixture of nerves and determination that invaded her. The ceremony venue was a luxurious estate surrounded by impeccable gardens and an opulence that seemed more designed to impress than to celebrate. Upon arriving, Lucy and Alexander walked along the stone path leading to the main courtyard, attracting immediate attention. Conversations stopped as if someone had turned down the volume on the party. Edward, standing next to Victoria, his young fiancée, couldn't hide his reaction upon seeing them. His jaw tensed, and although he tried to quickly compose himself, Alexander noticed. "There's your initial victory," Alexander whispered while giving Lucy's arm a squeeze, who didn't take her eyes off Edward. "This is just beginning," she responded with calculated calm. During the reception, guests seemed unable to avoid talking about Lucy and her companion. Among the murmurs were those who tried to approach her more out of curiosity than courtesy. Among them was Beatrice, Edward's sister, a woman known for her sharp tongue and tendency to meddle where she wasn't called. "Lucy, dear, I didn't expect to see you here. Although, of course, you've always liked drama," Beatrice said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Lucy took a deep breath before responding. "It's a special occasion, and I thought it deserved me coming to celebrate it. Edward and I shared years together, although not all of them were happy," she said, measuring each word carefully. Beatrice looked at her with a mixture of contempt and curiosity before adding, "Well, it's good to see you moving forward, although I wonder if it was necessary to bring someone so flashy. A message for Edward, perhaps?" Before Lucy could respond, Alexander intervened. "If the message is that Lucy is incredibly well and surrounded by people who value her, then yes, I think it's been a clear message," he said with a smile that disarmed Beatrice. Lucy took advantage of the pause to excuse herself, leaving Beatrice with a look of bewilderment. As she walked toward the bar with Alexander, a familiar shadow appeared in front of them. Edward had decided to approach, his expression a mixture of false cordiality and something darker. "Lucy, I'm glad you came," he said with a tone that didn't completely hide his irony. His eyes briefly shifted to Alexander before adding, "And with company, I see." Lucy looked at him directly, her words charged with a confidence she had previously struggled to find. Of course, I wasn't going to miss the opportunity to wish you the best. After all, it's always nice to see how others find their happiness. Edward's smile tensed, and for a second, Lucy thought she saw something like resentment crossing his face. I hope you're enjoying the party, although I doubt all this spectacle is really necessary, don't you think? He said, lowering his voice so only she could hear. Before Lucy could respond, Alexander stepped forward, placing a protective hand on her back. Lucy enjoys wherever she goes. It's one of the things I admire most about her. And speaking of spectacle, I think the event has been fascinating so far, Alexander said with a sharp smile. Edward stepped back, clearly irritated, but said no more. He turned and disappeared among the guests while Lucy exhaled a sigh of relief. Thank you for that, she said, looking at him with gratitude. That's what I'm here for, although I think that man is plotting something, Alexander responded with a look that followed Edward in the distance. Later, as the party progressed, Lucy decided to explore the estate a bit. Her steps led her to a small library, a space apart from the main celebration. In a corner, she found a slightly ajar door leading to a private office. Curiosity overcame protocol, and she entered. On the desk were scattered papers. Some were legal documents, others seemed to be invoices. But what caught her attention was a folder marked with a name she recognized from her recent searches. One of Edward's partners, known for his links to illicit activities. Upon opening it, she found contracts and printed emails that insinuated Edward was using his wedding as a facade to close an important business deal. One of the letters even mentioned Victoria as a key figure in the agreement, though the context wasn't clear. The air became heavy as Lucy processed what she was seeing. Edward wasn't just manipulating Victoria. He seemed to be involved in something much bigger than she had imagined. The sound of approaching footsteps pulled her from her trance. She quickly closed the folder and left the office, her heart pounding. She barely managed to hide behind a bookshelf when Edward entered accompanied by a man she didn't recognize. Everything's ready. I just need Victoria to sign those papers and the deal will be closed, Edward said. I hope you have everything under control. It wouldn't be good if your ex-wife or someone else interfered, the man responded with a cold tone. Lucy, hidden, held her breath. The tension was palpable, and each word confirmed she was dealing with something much more dangerous than she had anticipated. As the men left the office, she knew she couldn't stand by and do nothing. The celebration continued its course with an overflowing luxury that could barely camouflage the latent tensions among the guests. Lucy, after her discovery in the office, returned to the main hall with a mixture of uneasiness and determination. Each word Edward had said resonated in her mind. The folder she had found not only confirmed her suspicions, but wrapped her in a dangerous plot. She decided she had to act, but she couldn't do it alone. Alexander approached her while she held a glass of wine, his demeanor more serious than usual. Are you all right? You look like you've seen a ghost, he said quietly, looking around to make sure no one else was listening. We need to talk, but not here, Lucy responded, trying to maintain her composure. Alexander nodded discreetly. Minutes later, both slipped away to one of the estate's secluded gardens. There, under hanging lights that flickered like artificial fireflies, Lucy told him what she had found in the office. Edward is using this wedding as a facade to close a shady business deal. Victoria is involved, but I think she doesn't know what she's really signing. This is all a setup, Lucy said, her voice charged with a mixture of anger and frustration. Alexander listened attentively, his expression changing from astonishment to concern. This is bigger than we imagined. If what you're saying is true, Victoria could be in danger. What do you plan to do? Lucy looked toward the hall where Victoria was laughing with a group of guests, oblivious to the storm brewing. I can't stay silent. I need to warn her, but it won't be easy. Edward is always near her, and if he suspects something, he could become aggressive. Alexander took her by the shoulders, looking directly into her eyes. You're not alone in this. I'll do whatever's necessary to help you. But we have to be careful. This man doesn't play fair, and you're already on his radar. Later, Lucy took advantage of a moment when Victoria was alone, checking her phone on a terrace to approach. Her heart was beating hard as she walked toward her, aware that each word had to be measured with precision. Victoria, may I speak with you? Lucy asked, trying to sound as neutral as possible. Victoria looked up, surprised, but nodded. Sure, although I don't know what we could have to talk about, you and I, she responded with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Lucy took a deep breath before responding. I know we don't know each other well, but I think it's important that you hear this. I don't want to be invasive, but there are things about Edward you should know before taking this step." Victoria frowned, clearly uncomfortable. "What are you trying to say? Is this some kind of revenge? Because if it is, I don't want to hear it." "It's not about revenge, it's about protecting you. I found something in Edward's office. There are documents suggesting this wedding isn't just about love. He seems to be using you for something more, something that could harm you." Victoria stood up, clearly agitated. "I don't understand what you're talking about, but it sounds like a very serious accusation. Edward loves me and I love him. This doesn't make sense." Lucy maintained her firm posture. "I understand, but I need you to review those documents for yourself. I don't want you to take my word. I just want you to see the truth." Victoria looked at her with eyes full of confusion and doubt. Before she could respond, Edward appeared on the terrace, his imposing presence breaking the tension. "What's happening here?" he asked, looking at Lucy with distrust. Victoria, nervous, tried to explain. "Nothing, Edward. Lucy just wanted to talk about something." Lucy didn't flinch and faced him. "I just wanted to wish Victoria the best. She's a wonderful woman and deserves to be as happy as anyone." Edward studied her with cold eyes, as if trying to decipher her intentions. Finally, he smiled, though his gesture seemed more like a warning than a genuine expression. "Thank you, Lucy. I hope you're enjoying the party," he said before taking Victoria back to the hall. That night, while the guests continued celebrating, Lucy and Alexander met in the estate's library to devise their next move. They knew Edward already suspected something, and time to act was limited. "It won't be easy to convince Victoria. She's blinded by what she thinks is love," Lucy said, frustrated. "Maybe we don't need to convince her now. If we get concrete evidence, something she can't ignore, we could force her to face the truth," Alexander responded. Lucy nodded. She knew they had to act quickly and precisely. What she didn't know was that while they were talking, Edward was watching from the shadows, his eyes full of contained fury. He had underestimated Lucy, and now he knew he had to take drastic measures to protect his plan. The music and laughter continued resonating in the estate, but inside Lucy, tension grew like a storm about to break. She knew Edward was aware of her suspicions. His penetrating look on the terrace had been enough to confirm it. As the party advanced, the danger of their next steps became more real. In the library, Alexander and Lucy continued reviewing the documents she had taken from the office. Among the sheets, they found a contract confirming that Victoria was being used as a key figure in a money laundering business. Edward planned to use her name and newly acquired properties as a facade to hide illegal transactions. The magnitude of the plan was terrifying. "This isn't just emotional manipulation, it's a crime. Edward isn't just destroying Victoria emotionally, he's compromising her legally," Alexander said, his tone grave. "We have to stop him before it's too late," Lucy responded, while her mind traced possible paths. But none seemed easy or safe. Back in the main hall, Edward, aware that Lucy was plotting something, decided to take the initiative. He spoke with Beatrice, his sister, whose loyalty to him had always been unwavering. "Beatrice, I need you to stay close to Lucy. She's trying to sabotage my wedding. She's discovered something and we can't allow her to ruin what I've planned," Edward said, his voice a whisper charged with firmness. "Sabotage your wedding? Why would she do such a thing?" Beatrice asked, though her tone was more curious than incredulous. "Because she's never known how to accept that I lost interest in her. She's spiteful as always. Do what I tell you and make sure she doesn't interfere anymore." Beatrice nodded. Although she didn't completely trust Edward's version, her loyalty to him overcame her doubts. She observed Lucy in the distance, looking for the perfect moment to approach. Meanwhile, Lucy managed to separate Victoria again, taking advantage of an instant when Edward was busy attending to some business partners. This time she didn't beat around the bush. "Victoria, I know it's hard to believe me, but Edward isn't the man you think he is. He's using your name to cover illegal activities. These documents prove it," Lucy said, showing her the sheets she had taken. Victoria looked at them with incredulity. Her first reaction was to deny everything. "This doesn't make sense. Edward would never do such a thing. He loves me and has been clear with me from the beginning." Lucy breathed deeply, trying to maintain calm. "Really, can you tell me you've never noticed anything strange? That you've never felt there are things Edward doesn't tell you? Please, just look at these documents and think about what I'm saying." Victoria took the sheets with trembling hands. As she read, her expression changed. Doubt began to settle in her eyes, and a tear rolled down her cheek. "Why would he do such a thing?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Because it's not about love, Victoria. It's about control and ambition. You're just a piece in his game, Lucy responded, gently touching her arm. Before Victoria could respond, Edward appeared. His face was marked by contained anger, but his smile remained icy. What's happening here? He asked, looking at the sheets Victoria was holding. Lucy didn't move. For the first time, she felt no fear in confronting him. I'm showing her the truth, Edward. The truth you've tried to hide from her. Edward took a step toward Victoria, deliberately ignoring Lucy. Victoria, don't listen to this woman. All this is a desperate attempt to ruin what we have. She's never gotten over our relationship, and now she's trying to destroy our happiness. Victoria, still with the sheets in her hands, stepped back, clearly divided between the love she thought she felt and the evidence before her. I don't know what to think, Edward. This doesn't make sense, but it seems real. Edward took her by the shoulders, his tone transforming into a whisper full of persuasion. Victoria, don't let Lucy poison your mind. All this is a lie. You have to trust me. Before Victoria could respond, Alexander appeared, interposing himself between Edward and Lucy. I think you've said enough, Edward. Maybe it's time you explain what these documents really mean, Alexander said, his voice firm and defiant. The confrontation attracted the attention of several guests who began to approach, curious about the tense exchange. Beatrice, who had been watching from a distance, decided to intervene. What's happening here? She asked, her tone authoritative. Lucy turned to her, holding the documents up high. Your brother is using this wedding as a screen for illegal businesses. These documents prove it. Victoria is being manipulated. Beatrice looked at the papers, her expression passing from incredulity to something more complex. She knew Edward had a dark side, but she had never imagined he would go so far. Edward, feeling control slipping away, raised his voice. This is an orchestrated attack to destroy me. Lucy has always been resentful, and now she's found this man to help her in her revenge. The hall was in silence, all eyes focused on the confrontation. Victoria, unable to process everything, dropped the documents to the floor and ran toward the garden. Lucy tried to follow her, but Edward blocked her path. I won't give more warnings, Lucy. If you continue with this, you'll regret it, he said, his voice low and charged with threat. Alexander stepped forward. You can't intimidate her anymore, Edward. This game is over. The silence that had enveloped the hall was broken by the guests' murmurs. Glances crossed, some incredulous, others full of curiosity and judgment. Edward remained firm with an expression that tried to project control, but the tick in his jaw betrayed his contained anger. Lucy, motionless in front of him, felt a strange and powerful relief seeing that the truth was finally coming to light. But the game wasn't over yet, and she knew it. Alexander broke the silence. The evidence is there, Edward. You could try to deny it in front of your partners, but I doubt they want to get involved with someone who runs the risk of being exposed so publicly, he said, pointing to the documents that still lay on the floor. Edward shot a look charged with fury at Alexander, but before he could respond, Beatrice intervened. Is it true? Is there any truth in all this, Edward? She asked with a mixture of incredulity and reproach in her voice. Of course not, Edward exclaimed, his tone rising, echoing in the hall. This is an elaborate trap. Lucy has always had a sick obsession with me. Now she's recruited this second-rate actor to mount this circus. Beatrice didn't seem convinced. Her gaze shifted to the documents on the floor and then to Victoria, who had returned to the hall with reddened eyes. Victoria stepped forward, holding weakly to the railing. Her broken voice stopped any other words. Is it true, Edward? Have you used me? She asked, barely able to keep her gaze fixed on him. Edward took a step toward her, his hands raised as if trying to calm her. Victoria, my love, don't listen to these lies. Everything I've done has been for us, for our future. These people are trying to destroy what we have. But Victoria didn't back down. Something inside her, some intuition she had ignored for months, now roared with strength. She picked up one of the documents from the floor and held it in front of him. This has my signature. I don't remember signing this. What is this, Edward? Edward's facade of calm began to crumble. For a moment he remained silent, as if searching for the right words, but the truth was written on his face. I wasn't going to hurt you. It was just a temporary procedure. You would understand if you gave me a chance to explain, he said with a mixture of desperation and rage. Lucy stepped forward, her voice firm but charged with emotion. Temporary? Is that what you tell her? This doesn't just involve her legally, Edward. This makes her a pawn in a game you know could end very badly. All for your ambitions. Victoria dropped the papers to the floor. Her face reflected a mixture of horror and betrayal. This can't be happening. I trusted you. I loved you. I loved you, she screamed before running toward the garden, leaving behind the hall's commotion. Lucy followed her. She knew Victoria needed time, but she also knew leaving her alone with her emotions could be dangerous. She found her at the edge of a fountain, staring at the water while tears ran down her face. I'm so sorry, Victoria. I wanted to tell you before, but I didn't know how. I wanted to protect you from all this, Lucy said, sitting beside her. Protect me? What good did it do? Everything is already destroyed. Everything I believed about him, about what we had, Victoria responded between sobs. Lucy put a hand on her shoulder, her own voice breaking. What you had wasn't real, but that doesn't mean you can't find something true in the future. You're young, intelligent, and have the strength to overcome this. Victoria looked up, her eyes meeting Lucy's. And how did you overcome it? How did you bear being with someone like that? Lucy took a deep breath before responding. At first I didn't overcome it. I let myself be consumed by guilt, pain, and resentment. But with time I learned that I couldn't let Edward define my life. You can do it too, but you have to start by facing him. Meanwhile, in the hall, Edward had lost his patience. His facade of charming man had crumbled, and anger consumed him. Alexander remained close, watching his every move while the guests murmured among themselves. Beatrice finally spoke. I can't believe you've taken things this far, Edward. I always knew you were ambitious, but this is despicable. Edward turned to her, his eyes full of fury. You don't understand anything. Everything I've done to protect our family, our legacy. If you don't like it, it's because you don't have the vision to see it. Beatrice shook her head, her expression charged with disappointment. I'm not sure you're capable of protecting something you don't understand. Family isn't something you manipulate for convenience. Maybe it's time you face the consequences of your actions. Alexander intervened then, his voice cutting like a razor. The consequences are closer than you think, Edward. If Victoria decides to go to the police with those documents, your little empire could crumble. The chapter ends with a crucial decision in Victoria's hands. She returns to the hall with a calmer face, but full of determination. Edward tries to approach, but she stops him with a gesture. This ends here, Edward. Not just our relationship, but everything you're doing. I won't be an accomplice to your crimes. The outcome seems inevitable, and the audience is left on the edge of their seats, wondering how Edward will react to this betrayal and what consequences everyone involved will face. The psychological tension and moral dilemmas intensify, setting the stage for an ending full of revelations and resolutions. The hall was in silence. Victoria, standing in the middle of the crowd, had pronounced her words with a determination no one expected. Edward, trapped between his fury and his impotence, tried to regain control of the situation. Victoria, don't do this. Talking publicly about these matters will only complicate things more. We can resolve this between us, he said, his tone trying to be conciliatory but charged with threat. Victoria looked at him directly with tears still in her eyes, but her voice didn't waver. Resolve it? How? With more lies? Manipulating my life more? No, you can't control me anymore. This ends today. The guests began to murmur, some with accusatory looks toward Edward, others simply delighting in the unexpected spectacle. Beatrice, who had remained on the sidelines after her confrontation with Edward, decided to intervene. I think we've heard enough, Edward. You can't keep hiding your actions. If this party has been a screen for your businesses, then you have to face the consequences. Edward turned to her, his face red with anger. You've always been a traitor disguised as an ally too, he shouted, completely losing his composure. Alexander, who had been observing, stepped forward. Enough, Edward. You no longer have anyone backing you. It's time you face the truth. While tension increased in the hall, Lucy found her opportunity. She approached Victoria, who was still trembling, and spoke to her quietly. If you're afraid, I can go with you. You don't have to do this alone, but you need to make a decision now. Every second that passes, he finds a new way to defend himself. Victoria nodded, taking air to calm herself. I'll call the police. I can't let him keep doing this, not just to me, but to everyone he's manipulated. Lucy squeezed her arm gently, her gesture a silent promise of support. Victoria headed toward the door, taking out her phone while Alexander and Lucy followed to ensure she was safe. Inside the hall, Edward began to understand that his time had run out. Some important guests who clearly didn't want to be involved began to retire discreetly. Beatrice remained in place, looking at him with a mixture of disappointment and pity. I told you, Edward. You can't build an empire on lies without everything crumbling someday. Edward, now cornered, turned to her with a bitter smile. You've always enjoyed seeing me fall, haven't you? Well, congratulations. You succeeded. Before he could say anything more, sirens were heard in the distance. The police arrived quickly, entering the hall with decisive steps. Victoria guided them, holding the documents that incriminated Edward. The officers approached him, surrounding him. Edward Thornton, you're under arrest for fraud, money laundering, and other charges that will be detailed later. You have the right to remain silent, said the lead officer while they placed handcuffs on him. Edward resisted initially, but realizing he had no escape, he let his shoulders drop, a picture of absolute defeat. Before being taken away, he turned to Lucy with eyes full of resentment. I hope this makes you happy. You ruined my life. Lucy didn't respond immediately. Instead, she looked at him with a mixture of compassion and firmness. You ruined your own life, Edward. I just made sure your victims had justice. With Edward detained, the party dissolved quickly. The guests dispersed, leaving behind an echo of murmurs and exposed secrets. Victoria, exhausted but relieved, sat next to Lucy at one of the empty tables. Thank you for not giving up on me. I don't know what I would have done without your help, Victoria said, her voice still trembling. Lucy smiled at her with eyes full of empathy. What's important is that you made a brave decision. Not many would have done it. This won't be easy, but it's the first step to recovering your life. Alexander joined them, placing a hand on Victoria's shoulder. You have many people around you willing to support you. Never forget that. Victoria nodded with a small smile that was beginning to emerge through the tears. Later, as the night advanced and the estate remained in silence, Lucy and Alexander found themselves in the garden, away from the chaos. The moon shone above them, illuminating their faces with a soft and serene light. Do you think Edward will ever change? Lucy asked, looking at the stars. It's hard to say, but if I learned something from all this, it's that even the worst people can find redemption if they're willing to face the truth, Alexander responded. Lucy looked at him, her expression thoughtful. I also learned something, that even in the darkest moments, there's always an opportunity to do the right thing. We just need the courage to take it. Alexander smiled, his eyes shining with admiration. You're stronger than you think, Lucy. I think today you not only helped Victoria, but yourself too. Lucy didn't respond, but her smile said it all. For the first time in years, she felt she had found peace. She had faced Edward not just for Victoria, but for herself. And in that process, she had closed a chapter that had defined her life for too long. The next morning, dawn brought with it a fresh air that seemed to sweep away the last vestiges of the storm that had battered Victoria's and Lucy's lives. The estate, which hours before had been an emotional battlefield, was now empty, like a stage after a particularly dramatic play. Lucy was in her study a few days later, surrounded by her books and notebooks when she heard a soft knock at the door. Upon opening, she found Victoria with a shy smile and a renewed brightness in her eyes. She seemed stronger, more centered. I hope I'm not interrupting, but I wanted to thank you again for not giving up, for pushing me to see what was in front of me, Victoria said, holding a small package wrapped with care. Lucy smiled and invited her in. You don't have to thank me. You made the hardest decision. What's that? She asked, pointing to the package. Victoria extended it toward her. It's a copy of the resignation from all the contracts Edward forced me to sign. My lawyers say I'm completely free now. I wanted to share it with you because you made this possible. Lucy took the package, moved, and placed it on her desk. Then she looked at Victoria with a smile full of warmth. This is the beginning of something new for you. Do you have plans? She asked, genuinely interested. Victoria nodded, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. I've decided to move abroad for a while. I want to study art in Italy, something I always wanted to do but never dared to try. I think it's time to live for myself. Lucy hugged her, feeling an unexpected but welcome pride. It's an incredible decision. You deserve all the good things that are coming. As Victoria embarked on a new chapter in her life, Lucy was also experiencing changes. She had finished her latest novel, inspired by the wedding events. The story wasn't just a personal catharsis, but also a reflection on the power of truth and courage. Her editor, excited about the manuscript, told her it was the best thing she had written to date. A few weeks later, Alexander appeared at her door with a bottle of wine and a knowing smile. Shall we celebrate your upcoming success? He asked, holding the bottle high. Lucy invited him in, feeling lighter than she had felt in years. They shared laughter and deep conversations, as they had done at the wedding, but this time without the burden of secrets and tensions. "I never told you this, but you were my anchor in all that chaos. I don't know if I could have done it without you," Lucy admitted, looking at him with a vulnerability she didn't usually show. Alexander took her hand, his expression serious but warm. "I couldn't have done it without you either. That night I realized that sometimes chaos brings clarity. And you are my clarity, Lucy." The words hung suspended in the air before Lucy smiled, feeling a warmth she hadn't experienced in a long time. Perhaps, she thought, new beginnings could also include second chances at love. While Lucy explored this possibility, Victoria was sending postcards from Italy. In each one, she described the landscapes, art classes, and friends she had made. In one letter, she added a line that resonated deeply with Lucy. "Sometimes you have to lose everything to find what really matters." The story culminates with a symbolic scene. Victoria, in a Florence gallery, observes her first exhibited work, a self-portrait that captures her journey of rediscovery. Meanwhile, Lucy, in a cafe in her city, signs a copy of her new novel for an admirer while Alexander waits at a nearby table. Both women, on different but equally powerful paths, had found something more than justice. They had found the freedom to be who they really were. This ending closes the story with hope and reflection, showing that even in the darkest moments, there's always a path toward light. Victoria's and Lucy's lives are a testament to the power of resilience, courage, and self-love.